Hi everyone, I'm Lavina Subendran, Head of Marketing at RetailWire, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Karl, partner at IBM Consulting and one of the leading voices in helping retailers navigate disruption and transformation. We'll be discussing the hot topic, agentic AI, and how it's shaping the future of retail, from productivity and customer experience to scaling real business impact. We'll explore how IBM's vision is helping retailers move from theory to action. Hi, Karl. Welcome.
Hi,
Hi. Good to have you
nice
with
to
us.
be here. Yeah, thank you for having me on today.
Let's start by setting the foundation. AI terminology is evolving quickly. How can you help us understand what the difference is between agentic AI and generative AI?
Sure. I'll say there is a business answer to that, and there's a technical answer to that. Luckily, I guess, luckily for the audience, I'm going to give the business answer. Um, the way I think about it, and the way I think most business people would think about it, is the difference between kind of ask and answer and task. So, ask or task. With generative AI, or Gen AI, you're kind of asking the AI to create something. It's creating words. It could create a string of numbers, might create a chemical formula, might create an image, might create a video. Um, Agentic AI, though, is focused on the task, doing things for you by actually taking action on your behalf. So, ingesting information, understanding that information, reasoning, and then taking a series of actions independently or in some of, for a large retailer or brand in their enterprise systems. Or it could be acting and bringing you as a user options and letting you click on which option you want and then taking the action on your behalf. Just one example, if I think about a retail store, you know, within any retail store on any given day, there is a flood of activity happening. You know, Customers are showing up at the front, trucks are arriving with goods in the back, people are walking through the store, they're putting things in a basket or a bag. If it's a clothing store, people might be going to a fitting room. People are checking out in the front. There are bunches of staff going around, and there are, hundreds of devices connected that all have to be monitored and managed. So, thousands or tens of thousands individual events every single day. We think a retailer should be monitoring each of those events and then triggering actions, some which might be done by an agentic AI system, some which might be done by human, some which frankly might be done by robots, and then some that need a manager to review first, decide on the action, and then put the action in place. One thing I'd also say is that it it's easy to start separating, like, classical AI ML from generative AI, from agentic AI. And to some extent, it's important to understand what each do, but really all of these work hand in hand. So there could be an AI agent that's triggering Gen AI to create, like in that example about a manager reviewing options, it's agentic AI, which is looking at the different options, triggering an agent that uses generative AI to write out what the options are that a manager may execute. And then the manager is deciding, and then it's going back to generative AI, which might trigger an AI ML system to, request more inventory or look at what the inventory optimization is, in a given store. Um, the thing that we see is really important with generative or with agentic AI is that when you're thinking about generative AI and all of the asking and answering that we all do every day, you can still get there, but humans have to do all of the work. And so when you start thinking about where and how agentic AI makes sense for a retailer, it's where you want to do things in a repeatable manner across, hundreds of people, hundreds of locations. If you need to do things consistently multiple times, frankly, having people type prompts into a Gen AI system and get answers back is probably not the best way to do it.
So, where does IBM see the biggest opportunities for retailers to create value with agentic AI, and where are you seeing your clients embrace it?
So, I would say there is value in every area of the business. There are opportunities for, and I'll really say for AI in every area of the business. Um, the biggest bang is where you want to be able to have some consistent, repeatable processes. So we're seeing a shift from a lot of little experimentation, what I would call little I innovation, to capital I innovation, and think and focusing on reinventing those core workflows that matter. So that could be merchandising, the assortment planning, allocation, replenishment. The challenge of thinking about how much of a given item you need in which location to maximize your sales and profits is a critical challenge retailers face every single day. Um, when you're doing that, if you're just a digital retailer, all your inventory is kind of sitting in one place, largely. I mean, you have multiple DCs, et cetera. But when if you're a retailer operating hundreds or thousands of locations, you've now got to think about the deployment of those goods in a much more finite manner to meet the needs of all of those local communities. So that's a big workflow. Marketing is another big workflow, automating the manual workflows that take place to get a piece of creative up on the site or a campaign launched and executed. Even with generative AI creating some of the content, which it's excellent at doing, all of the approvals that are required and all of the steps in the workflow need to be reinvented in order to get that piece of content out faster. Store operations, I just kind of gave that example about the store. That's another big area. That's a big cost area for every retail company. And, all of the task management that I talked about, but all of the things that the capabilities and tools you can provide to your frontline associates. Every retailer has probably 90% of their staff overall work in a store, and so enabling them to check their shift or manage their shift and swap a shift or schedule time off or any of the myriad of HR tasks that they have to do. Maybe they only have to do it, maybe they do it weekly or daily, maybe they do it once every 6 months. Putting those capabilities in their hands, in a mobile device in their hands, is a great use case. We're seeing a lot of the starting points in back office operations, workflows in finance, accounts payable and receivable, workflows in HR, for, store associates as well as corporate, workflows in indirect procurement, in legal, and also in IT. All of the monitoring and management of every system, every device, every interface, and every transaction that takes place between systems, triaging those and executing fixes to those, with in I'll say real time, although technically it's not real time, but it doesn't require teams of people to investigate the source of an issue. You've got something monitoring it. It sees what the issue is and it starts to address it either autonomously or with some level of human approval and workflow.
That moves us on quite nicely to the next question, which is retailers today are under a huge amount of pressure to do more with less. Smaller teams, tighter budgets, higher expectations. How has IBM's own experience using AI to streamline operations internally helped shape the retail specific strategies you're offering to your clients?
So, as you may know, we are not a retailer. Do believe we have some e-com transactions that happen, but if you separate store operations, we actually have a lot of the same workflows that exist in a large retail organization. So we do business planning. We monitor and manage our business performance. We actually have physical goods that we order and produce, and so we manage a physical supply chain. We do a lot of marketing of all different types. We manage, a global array of physical and digital properties, all of which have systems that need to be monitored and maintained. And, we have hundreds of applications and IT systems across a 250,000 population set of users who need IT support and HR support and, execute back office transactions. Um, we've put a lot of effort over the past 4 or 5 years reinventing how all of our workflows take place, re-engineering processes, incorporating automation, and putting what I'll call an AI front door onto almost every corporate system. Um, I'll give you 2 quick examples. In marketing, and I was shocked to learn this. In marketing, it took us 6 weeks to get a display ad up online. Multiple creative teams, multiple approvals and reviews. We're a big, complex global company. Um, so we've gone back and reinvented that process where we use Gen AI to help create the content bounced up against our brand standards, and the theme and tone that we want to have in the content. And we use agentic AI to manage the workflows and approvals. And so now we can get a display ad up in 6 seconds.
Oh well,
From
that's
6 weeks to 6 seconds, right? We're not talking about 10% improvement in efficiency. I don't know how many point nines go on the end of 99% when you go from 6 weeks to 6 seconds, but it's a lot.
yeah.
Um, the other example I'll say is in our support systems, in HR, IT, and our other corporate applications. Everyone in IBM can use these systems to do both ask and answer and to execute transactions. So as a manager, I can actually use our virtual agent our HR virtual agent, which we call Ask HR, to execute transactions on my behalf or for one of my team. And I do this in demos sometimes. I can actually transfer someone from one location to another. I can change someone's salary. I can do all of this through chat without having to go into the core HR system. And I'll say a proof point for us that it's working is that last year we switched from Workday to SuccessFactors. Um, it was unnoticeable to me, and it was unnoticeable to the other users because we're working through a virtual agent interface that goes in and executes those transactions on our behalf without having to go into the underlying systems, which frankly are still not that easy to use. All told, I think we've reinvented over 70 core business processes, and we're driving $3.5 billion in annual productivity gains, which is about a 30% improvement, or to put it in retail terms, 650 basis points of SG&A expense. And when I talk to some of my clients about, hey, would you like to find opportunities to save 500 basis points in SG&A? They usually say yes to that. They're a real tangible evidence of things that they could be putting in place even though we're not a retailer.
So moving on to sort of the productivity and the purpose using technology. So technology has to empower people, not just replace tasks. How can retailers ensure that agentic AI not only boosts productivity, but also creates a more intuitive, unified experience for both employees and customers?
It's super important. We believe very strongly in taking a user-led approach to everything we do. It's not technology for technology's sake. And in fact, a lot of the work we're doing right now, going back to stores as an example, is for retailers who have rolled out mobile applications to their stores, but realize they have 70 of them or 80 of them, all of which have different user interfaces. It's a sea of buttons on your phone. The graphical interface looks different, the workflow looks different, and it's not really made to work across. So in some cases, we'll go back and take, 80 applications and turn it into 8, core applications with an AI front end on it that then executes in each of those systems that those applications were built on top of. Um, when I think the other thing is that ultimately, whether you're dealing with an automated workflow or a hybrid manual automated workflow, ultimately a human is still accountable for the operational output and for the business results. And so, we always start with the user, whether that's an employee user, whether that's a customer user in mind.
Okay. As we look ahead beyond pilots and proof of concept, what's IBM's vision for the future of AI in retail, and how are you helping brands move from experimentation to scaled, measurable impact?
So this is the multiple billions of dollars of question. And we've been doing a lot of work. Actually, I have running workflows about what I'm calling AI 2030 looks like. What it looks like for a grocer, what it looks like for a CPG company, what it looks like for a fashion company, what it looks like for a beauty company. Um, and and I use those as inputs to kind of think about what's going to happen. So I'll give you 2 angles to this. So playing things out to this, 27 to 2030 timeframe, there's gonna be major change in both how consumers are shopping and using AI in the shopping process and how retailers are operating. So on the shopping front, by 2027, we believe it will be commonplace for consumers to use AI as part of the shopping process. Some of this will be related to search, some will be kind of taking actions on behalf of a consumer. You might be putting goods in a shopping cart, you might be making a reservation, triggering a service call, cashing in loyalty points, all those little transactions that we do. And in some cases, people will have an agent make a purchase on their behalf. I actually go back to what happened with e-com back in the 90s, and I'm old enough to remember e-com back in the 90s in the, Internet 1.0 era. And I remember all these discussions about what people will and won't buy online. There were arguments that, oh, no one will buy clothing online because you have to try it on. No one's going to buy a car online or furniture or appliances or glasses or all of this. And as no surprise, as it turns out, for almost any product and frankly, almost any service, there are some people who will buy it online and some who won't. And frankly, now most of us just hop back and forth across digital and physical touch points without even thinking twice. I think we're going to see this similar progression with AI. So we can't sit here and go, oh, I'll never use AI to buy my groceries, or I'll never use AI to book my vacation, or to buy a Christmas present for my wife, or, any of those things. There are 8 billion of us in the world. We each make our own different decisions about what and how we do things, and certain things are more important to us, and certain things are less important to us. And I guarantee you that across almost any consumer use case, someone will use AI for some or all of that process. I think we're going to see some steady growth among mostly early adopters and some fast followers throughout 2025. I think we're going to see a tipping point around gift purchases. Again, largely fast followers and early adopters in this holiday. I think we'll then see steady growth in 2026, picking up more of the fast followers, some of that early majority, the bigger part of the bell curve. And then I think we'll see a major tipping point in holiday 2026. Again, gift purchases are notoriously hard, and it's a good use case for AI at multiple steps in the shopping process. And then again, commonplace, not across the board. Not all the stores will close and not all the websites will go away, but commonplace by 2027. And it really means that, and there's a lot of work that is starting to happen around content, commerce, and marketing, that frankly goes beyond what the discussion is today, which is around this shift from SEO to sometimes it's called GEO, generative engine optimization, engine optimization, or AI optimization. But really, we're going to see a larger shift. I can think of half a dozen to a dozen major companies that have developed agentic shopping capabilities. OpenAI, Perplexity, Walmart, Shopify, Amazon, Anthropic. They're all building it not just for their own customer on their own property, but to be that front door for shopping. Um, I don't know who's gonna win and who's gonna lose, but I bet we will see 1 or 2 of the new tech companies emerge and become a front door for shopping, not dissimilar to how we saw Amazon and eBay kind of become, and then later Shopify become front doors for shopping, in the e-com era. Um, and I think we're seeing a whole host of providers springing up to be middlemen, similar to what we're seeing with marketplaces. On the industry side, I think we're going to see AI move at a more slow and steady pace, not dissimilar to other business and technology transformation. So I don't think we see as much of a tipping point. I think we'll see some companies be ahead and some companies be behind, and we're seeing that already among our clients. And frankly, the thing I would say to the people who are kind of sitting back and trying to wait, um, given the actual productivity gains that we're seeing among the retailers and brands who are moving faster, the gap in business performance might get to be so great that it's going to be hard to be a fast follower in this game, and it might be hard to catch up. Not that you can't implement the technology, but because there will be a gap in business performance that becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. If your business performance is down, you don't have the money to invest, and it's harder to ramp that cycle faster. So I think that's that the thing I would say is you need to be looking at your major workflows and major business processes and looking at where you can start to move the needle with an eye toward 2026, not an eye toward 2029.
Thank you, Carl. That's some powerful insights for us to unpack. It's clear that the next wave of AI isn't just about content, it's about action. So thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, that's
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.